On this episode, we're talking about conference locations, state final structure, development teams, 3-2 point scoring, and the impact of rugby league. Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast edition, episode 2 on touchscreen. And once again, I'm joined with Mitch Walkerton, and we also have a special guest for this episode, Dave Stone. How you going, Dave? Well, how you going, Mitch? I don't want to bypass Mitch.
No, brush me. You got to go straight to the state 20s coach, mate.
You hear enough. You sort of so we've seen you a fair bit, but yeah, we'll go. Oh yes, Dave, State of Origin, men's under 20s coach.
Yeah, how are we, guys? Thanks for having me on board.
Not a problem. Thanks for coming on at such short notice. I think I asked you at about lunchtime today.
Yeah, mate. Still on school holidays, so it's good.
Yeah. You want to tell us a bit about yourself and what you do with touch? I know you've got a big Northern Eagles logo right behind you.
Yeah. So been around the touch world for a while. Coached, played, done all the above, but injuries forced me more into the coaching side of things. Coached at many levels, from grassroots, juniors, seniors, all the way through to Aussies. But yeah, currently I've got the men's 20 State of Origin, which is exciting. Had them last series and we just fell short. So hopefully we can go back and get them this series. And I think it's been 5 or 6 series since we've beat the 20s. So we've got our work cut out for us, but I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, no, that'd be very exciting, State of Origin. Because we had the 21 and 22, and it seems like a huge gap because we were gifted with back-to-back years of State of Origin. Was it 21, 22 or 22, 23? Anyway, just feels like a long time since we've had State of Origin, so can't wait for that. Yeah, anything new happening with you, Mitch, down there? I assume that when it comes to the edit, you're going to be still down the bottom. That's just the luck of the draw.
No, mate. It's I'm sort of preparing for NTLs with the Hornets 20s boys team. Not coaching after doing 10 years of juniors at Dolphins. Not coaching this year, so really looking forward to being a parent and getting around and watching plenty of touches. The junior rep season is really in full swing at the moment.
And that is such a great segue to what we're going to talk about. We're going to be, in this episode, talking about all things junior rep. Couldn't have planned that better. But yeah, so junior rep, there's always talking points. I guess with every tournament, there's always people talking around like they have a million ideas on how to make things better. Everyone's got their opinions, but it takes someone to actually do something. But we're going to talk about a couple of these opinions. And if you are watching and you have a different opinion or you disagree or you have something else you want to talk about, let us know in the comment section. And I might get back to you if you're a member. Please be a member. Sign up. There's a link in the description. Does anyone have anything that they want to get off their chest, like anything they've just been really wanting to talk about as far as junior rep? It could be something that bothers you, something you really like, something that you're not sure about, or we could just start with my list.
Jump in on that one. Just probably around the volunteer space, I think it seems harder and harder to get volunteers, whether it's just helping with normal competitions, local competitions, whether it's coaches, whether it's referees, selectors. I just feel it's getting harder to find them volunteers for representative sports. We all love our kids to play it, but I feel there's less and less people putting their hands up to help to get involved. I think that's a hard space that's been around for a fair while, to be honest. So yeah, it's just something that I think is personal, and every affiliate has trouble with it, I think. So
I think that's a bit of a society thing though too, right? Whereby, and I don't know, if I think back to 10 years ago, you'd always have people volunteering and trying to help. Can I cook the barbecue? Can I do this? What can I do? People sort of coming forward and volunteering. Whereas, I don't know, like I've noticed the change where people are just happy to, sit back and they actually have to be asked, hey, can you jump in and help? Whereas, you're right. You have to actually go and ask someone, hey, do you mind? And then they'll say, yeah, no worries, I'll help out. But I think it has changed somewhat whereby, previously used to people say, what can I do to help? Whereas now it has sort of flipped and people get, I guess, asked or wait to get asked before they, put their foot forward.
I wonder if that's got something to do with, like, I know at my club, there's probably a lot of people that don't actually know, like a lot of parents to having their kids in rep teams and stuff. They probably actually don't know the magnitude of what goes on behind the scenes. They probably don't know actually the amount of hours that our committee or our executive committee put into our representative scene. Like it could be, it's almost a full-time job in itself when you've got such a small contingency taking on that role. And because everything's just getting done usually smoothly, I reckon parents might sit back because they just assume that there's not much happening because it's always just getting done. Because like regardless of what happens, it gets done. Just usually it means someone's got to take the full brunt of the workload.
Not even reps though, right? It's local comp.
Yeah, absolutely.
To put the hats in, to mark the fields, to, I don't know, I cook the barbecues, sit in the canteen.
We're actually pretty lucky with our social comp because our grounds are so close to a school that majority of our kids go to. They walk it's walking distance. For anyone in high school, it's safe to just walk across to the field. So we've usually got a bunch of high school kids there not doing anything, and we'll go, hey, can you just do this? And they'll put some pads on some poles to be safe. They'll put some cones out. We actually are pretty lucky there. But if we didn't have that school, like our junior comp starts at we need people doing things at 4:30, and a lot of people can't get there that early. So
yeah, no, for sure. People work and whatnot.
That's a good one.
That's a good point, Tom. Like getting the current senior players, like opens players, your older 18s, 20s, and that, give them back to the club. Because obviously they've just come out of that junior system. If they can give back to the club, it makes people's life a little bit easier at that top level that are doing the working with children checks, all them little things that a lot of people don't even think of that you have to cover off and tick off from an administration role. I think, you see a lot of the clubs where you see the older, more experienced kids giving back to the younger ones. They're probably the clubs that are leading the way at the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's it's probably a good thing we're talking about that first, because it is something that probably needs to get the word out that no matter what you think's happening, help is needed. There's always somewhere that needs help.
Yeah.
But we'll talk specifically now. We're three New South Welshmen, so we might dabble a little bit about comparing New South Wales junior scene to Queensland. But this is predominantly going to be talking about New South Wales. It might be relevant to Queensland Junior State Cup as well. Who knows? But this is going to be probably more New South Wales based because that's where we're from. Firstly, so in 2019, we went to a conference system. So it used to be just one big state cup at Port Macquarie, and then I assume it was because the tournament ended up getting too big. And I remember 2018, there was nowhere to warm up. It was just people everywhere. Parking was just chaotic. And they split it into two conferences. It seemed like, in a nutshell, anything above Sydney Harbour was in the Northern Conference. Anything below Sydney Harbour was in the Southern Conference. And they moved Southern Conference to Wagga and kept Northern Conference for the time being in Port Macquarie. But that has since moved to Dubbo. So we've got one in Dubbo and one in Wagga, two pretty isolated country affiliates. Now, in your guys' opinion, is that the best option for the two conferences, or do you have something that you think would work better?
Stoney used to work for New South Wales Touch, right? So it sort of puts him in shout out, g'day Dean. Look, the sport, it was too big. It had to be split. And I hear a lot of people with different opinions, and everyone's it's bullshit. You have to have it in two, and we need a winner.
I think the conferences we had to split it. Like, it was too big.
Absolutely. So our sport is about trying to grow participation too, right? And so if you look at the Southern Conference, which is in Wagga, if you look at all the affiliates that, pre-2019, You didn't have Coolamon. You didn't have Griffith. You didn't have all of these smaller southern regions, Riverina teams participating in the Junior State Cup. Now that it's in Wagga, they now do participate, and we're seeing a lot of new affiliates pop up, and the growth for the Suns region predominantly, I think, is great. If you look at the Northern Conference, I think the biggest loser is Stoney's Northern Eagles, because the Port Macquaries, the Balliners, the Maxvilles, the traditional Taree, they're the four big clubs in Northern Eagles who used to travel an hour or stay at home, and now they're travelling 8 hours out to Dubbo. So I think they've been potentially the biggest loser, if I can say that, out of this. But in terms of overall, we had 2 wipeouts in Port Macquarie, unfortunately. New South Wales Touch had to move. And I think there was Tamworth or it was Dubbo. And to be honest, Dubbo is unbelievably good. The fields, there's plenty of shade. I love Dubbo as much as I love going to Port. And so I think New South Wales Touch did the right thing. They had to split it. And the last couple of years we've had state finals. I know the first year that we tried it, Penrith got washed out. There was just awful luck for New South Wales Touch there. But I think the conference system is great because it grows the participation and gets more people playing. And we do get a state winner the weekend after Northern Conference.
I'm not going to disagree with you too much, to be honest. Like, you look at the numbers, I think off the top of my head, there's probably, roughly around that 430 in total, North and South combined. To run that at one event, you'd have to nearly go 5 days. It's just too hard, too long. People couldn't afford that period of time after school holidays. The weather situation, no one can control that. But I was at New South Wales Touch when that decision was made. And look, I'd love to drive 10 minutes from my house to the fields. But the decision had to be made, and it was just one of those unfortunate things that it's gone out to Dubbo. They've put on a really good show out there. The fields are outstanding. The only problem is probably accommodation. That's probably the only thing. Like, I sort of look at it, and I'm probably a bit biased towards our region up here, but if we're asking people to travel, let's say Ballina, 10 hours to Dubbo, if they can't get accommodation in Dubbo, they're travelling still another hour to and from the event.
Yeah.
That's sort of the thing that I sort of look and go, look, I don't mind travelling. I've got no problem. I've travelled for 25 years for touch. But if we're asking people to travel that distance and then have to travel an hour to the comp and back again each day, that's sort of the little bugbear that I can see. But the decision had to be made. New South Wales done the right thing. Like, I was in the background, I saw all different sides of things and that, and they looked at there was no stone not unturned. Like, Tamworth's got the accommodation. The fields it would be a split venue. That would be very hard to manage from an event point of view. The other one's Coffs Harbour up north, but once again, it's an hour and a half north. The weather still affects it. It's just one of those things that they've done it. Dubbo's put on a good show, and they've got it until the next tender goes out, and then who knows what could happen.
You talk about the accommodation being sort of, and I agree, that's probably the biggest issue. But when you look at Dubbo as a touch football association, I think what they've done is a 10 out of 10. I don't think they could have done anything better. Like, the accommodation's probably not in their control. That's just Dubbo. That's just the way Dubbo is. But you're 100% right with Northern Conference. They've taken that with two hands, and then they've just made the best version of State Cup that they could possibly do. And I still remember, Mitch, I was talking to you about it the first year they had it, and you were telling me, and I hadn't even got to Dubbo yet, you were at the fields on the Thursday night or something, and you were ringing me telling me how good they were. And I'm just
couldn't believe it.
What? This is Dubbo? And he's like, it is carpet. And it was. And they backed it up the next year. But Field 1 on the stadium, it's not a stadium, Field 1 was carpet, but Field 21 was also carpet.
No, that's right.
They
it's
put
not
the
the
effort
backfield.
in.
Just
Yeah. And
absolutely.
and the layout is really good. You didn't feel like you were away from anything. It was sort of like you had field 1 and then everything circled around it. Whereas if you played on field 4, 5, 6, 7, you're in front of all the tents. So there's really 7 fields that feel like field 1. One of them is just happened to be a live stream. But and it's a really good point, Mitch, what you said about Southern Conference. Like Parramatta, Penrith, all those big ones, they'll go anywhere. Like you're never going to lose them. But yeah, to be honest, I thought Wollongong at first when they said Southern Conference. I thought, yeah, they'll go to Wollongong. And they went to Wagga. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like Griffiths is actually getting quite strong. They're getting some big numbers in Griffiths touch. And
to be
didn't even think of that.
The Wagga venue, it's just as good, to be honest. Like their fields are just as
it is. Yeah,
I've actually never gone to the venue at Wagga. I have heard excellent thing about it.
The venue's really easy. It's like a triangle, basically.
Okay.
Easy to get in and out. All the cars go one way. It's not.
Yeah, they only go one way in the big circle.
So like I've done the parking and that when I was working for New South Wales Touch down there, and there's just literally no issues down there. It's a quick setup. The venue's easy to get around. Both venues at the moment are very, very good. You can't complain about that. It's just from both venues, probably the accommodation things.
It is the accommodation. But, I think the council does try, like both councils do try and come up with innovative ways to try and help.
That's why the years split around. So when North and South, they rotated. North was first and South was second.
Yeah.
The reason they switched was the uni, you could get accommodation at the uni down at Wagga. So it sort of flipped it, which at that stage, State Cup was still at Port. So that helped the accommodation down at Wagga. So, there was no stone unturned in the way of where it was, sort of stuff. So
both
venues
have got the tick from us. They got the tick from me.
Both councils get 2 ticks. The food vendors, like the whole town. It's an event, and they appreciate, a big sporting event with 5,000, 10,000, how many people coming in and populating the town, accommodation, spending money. So, one thing. We used to have development teams, and they got scratched. I'm wondering.
Let's go to that because that's on my list. We can talk about that next.
I'm wondering. Yeah. I'm wondering, and again, I'll probably lean on you, Stoney, a little bit. I think there would be some. I'm not sure why we couldn't have development teams coming back into Northern and Southern, because I do believe there'd be enough fields and there'd be enough.
I actually inquired about this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I got one word in response, and it starts with A and it ends in accommodation.
Oh, okay.
But I think as far as the tournament goes, let's just pretend that wasn't an issue. I think it's a really good idea. I think development teams is definitely very good because we go in by twos. We go 12s, 14s, 16s. We don't go 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s. So there's some teams there that if you've got an under 14s girls team, they could be all 14 that year. And then you could have an under 12s team that are all 12 that year. And then there's like a group of players that are 13 that year.
Kids who only play every second year.
Yeah. So a development team is really good for those bottom age kids, especially around that 12s and 14s. They may not have just had their growth spurt yet. We don't want them to miss out on 12 months of touch footy just because they haven't had the growth spurt. I think it's just
I'm a bit of a stickler for this. It's a tough situation. Like I get what you guys are saying.
Tell us, Dave.
But I think that's what your Eagles champs, your Hornets champs, all them sort of smaller divisions can be used for within development ones. I'm a bit of an originalist where if you can't make your top 14, like State Cup. And like probably it would work with your bigger affiliates. So like obviously you guys down the Hunter region are really strong. You've got your Manleys, your Wests, your Penriths may be able to do that sort of stuff for your younger ages. But I think if you can't make the top tier, them smaller comps, that's where you do your development part of things. That's just my personal opinion.
And I guess the other option that's been thrown around too, I know that talking to people from Sydney clubs about this, is actually having their own internal 2-day tournament just for development teams. It might be in the period, like 2 weeks before Junior State Cup or something, when there's neither Northern or Southern on. They might. There's been talk of throwing that out, maybe a 2-day where it's just no finals or however they want to do it, but it's just for development teams. And obviously, you'd probably do it in Sydney and it's not a conference-related thing. Anyone can come, but it's that way. There's probably something where if you're a development team from Dubbo or something like that, you're not going to go there and verse Manly
No
ones.
chance.
Yeah. And I sort of look at it too, like you guys are probably looking at it from a big club point of view. I want to look at it, how can we get the really small clubs involved in State Cup?
Mm-hmm.
It's a fair point, right? So if accommodation is the big driver, and then, all we're going to have is, Manly and Renegades and Wests and all these other guys are going to have 2 teams taking more accommodation, then your smaller little Glen Innes's and do they go, geez, it's hard to get accommodation. Oh, we just, we just won't do it. We'll just go to Northern Eagles, and then that'll do us.
Yeah, I'd like to see maybe, I don't know whether it's a long shot or what, maybe a 16s, 18s mixed comp for them smaller affiliates to get them engaged, because they mightn't have 14 boys and girls.
Dave, you know what? I told my theory to Tom, so I've got to
leave that because we'll get. I've got it written here. Mitch's I don't have theory, or it's Mitch's idea, but it's a really good one. We'll come to it later because we'll have to, in a couple of minutes, jump off and back on. But leading on from development teams, what they actually did originally for the first year when they split in 2020, the 1 year we actually finished a Northern Conference in Port Macquarie, they had under 8s. So if not development teams, would you think reintroducing under 8s is a good or a bad idea? I've got a very big opinion on this. So I coached last year the under 12 boys Hornets team, and I could tell after coaching 12s before, these guys 4 years. So they were 8s. They were the team that had 8s in 2020. 4 years later, they were all under 12s. And I could see the difference in the amount of development they'd had playing an extra 2 years of touch footy. They were just outstanding for their age. So I would be more than happy to have under 8s, but I would align it with like rugby league and have it not competitive. There wouldn't be any finals. That's my opinion.
I think 8s is too young. That's just my personal opinion.
That's why I wouldn't have it competitive, because you'd have kids very upset about losing.
Turn it up, Tom. Give me a break.
We want to be in this partnership with rugby league, and rugby league don't have competitive under 8s.
I think in the way of you look at the local comps, go back to local comp level. Most ages don't start touch footy for kids around that 8. They may have an 8s comp at local level. So we're asking them not to really learn the fundamentals of the sport, but then go straight into a State Cup scenario where you might get your 10 boys or girls that are taught a higher level, but you're not teaching the whole group of the 8s at the local affiliate level. I'd like to see maybe a bit more development at local affiliate level around that age group before they move straight into a State Cup or high level. So I think the 10s is good because they probably already had 2 years in the local affiliate, just at a local level, just playing a bit of touch and that, may learn a few skills and drills and stuff like that. But then when they're 10s...
So basically you're saying that there needs to be some time to learn the game before you are representing your affiliate. Which
I'm still getting kids now and they haven't learnt the fundamentals of the sport. That's the simple things that they're not doing right. And I just feel they get taught that young, it's a little bit easier for them to transition into a rep level.
I'd say no to under 8s. My wife coached under 8s, and that team's now up to under 14s. some of those kids. So they've been playing for I don't know how many years, but it's only really, and all kids learn differently and other bits and pieces. But the reality is they don't know touch moves in under eights. It's get the ball and try and run round kids, right? So leave them playing in the local comp. Get them, if they're in that age group, they're going to be probably going out and watching an older brother or a sister or whatever. But no, I wouldn't bring back under eights for reps. And if you did, you've got to play to win, Tom. This rubbish of not keeping score, give me a break. Don't get me started. You play to win that game. The kids know the scores.
So leading on to this was still talking about our junior state cup. With the conferences in 2019 when they first split, it was top 8, and they pushed it back. It was like in April or something.
Yeah, it was.
And they actually had a few of the 18 boys teams had to pull out because of footy and stuff like that. But it was a 2-day event, and there was 8 teams. So there was a total of 16 teams in each division that were invited to the state final. And then in 2020, it went to top 4. That got washed out. And then from there, we had 2 where we couldn't do it. And then 2023 went to just the winners. Do you think, are you happy with just the winners, or do you think that should be a couple of teams?
I think they've got it right.
Okay. So I think both grand finalists should go, and then you play 3 pool games, and then the top 2 teams face off.
So 4 games.
Just in case. Yeah, and it'd be potentially an extra game, right? And I know that's, more touch and other bits and pieces. Normally the best team does win, but in the unlikely event that they had they lost the grand final, they can then get vengeance. And anyway, that if I was able to structure it, I'd have both. I'd have a top 4.
So would you play the pool games and then go straight to a GF?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, and that way
you'd play everyone once, and then the top 2 teams play in the grand final.
That would be doable still in one day as well. You could do that in one day.
Absolutely would be.
They play 3 games anyway.
It's a long day. Yeah, it's a long day, but that's what I'd potentially do, and then I think you would get the best team winning it.
I like the excitement of having the best out of 3.
Yeah.
State of origin feel.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I like that as well, but I wouldn't be against having the top 2. Anything more than that is a bit ludicrous, to be honest. No, you can't have anything else. No way. But yeah, let us know in the comments what you think of this. But just Mitch, is that a bit of a personal thing about the whole losing the grand final and its vengeance?
Oh no, I've lost plenty.
Yeah,
got a lot of silver medals throughout the house.
I got one here.
No, I just
silver.
At least you've got some, Mitch. At least you've got some.
Yeah, no, that's right, mate. So look, it's I don't know. It is, it is what it is. Probably because that leads into the next conversation. Because sometimes you can lose the Northern or the Southern Conference, even though you've had a draw, based on the 3-2 scoring.
All right.
So
the segues are just amazing here, because that is literally the next point on my list. So keep going.
Oh, thanks, Tom.
Reading my mind.
It's not my first radio. It's not my first radio, brother. Sometimes you get on the right side of them. So, full disclosure, last year we wouldn't have beaten Wagga to be state winners if the 3-2 rule wasn't in, they would have beaten us. So, we were beneficial there. But the year before, we actually had a draw. So, and we lost. So, I think Dean once said, and Stoney, you probably know this, Dean once said there was a drop-off, I don't know, 8 years ago, 14 girls or something, and it went for about 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So
one in the conference, it was still 0-0, because even though they had the 3-2 point system. There was a 0-0 one at Northern Conference, and it still went for 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. I can't remember off the top of my head. It went for ages.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's the only.
So me personally, like, I can understand why they brought it in. Like when you were talking about a state cup that was all together, which is when they brought it in, and the last game was probably at 4:00. If we started having drop-offs all day, yes, that can get pushed back. And especially like if you're from Sydney and you were traveling to Port Macquarie and stuff, it could just be a mess on a Sunday. So I can understand they needed to make sure the games are finishing at a reasonable time, giving everyone a chance to travel home. Totally get that. Whereas now we're in conferences, I assume the games are finishing a little bit early. There is less teams. And if, let's just say there's a draw on field 4, why can't actually they're probably because there's a game after it, but now I've just answered my question, because I was going to say, why can't the referees just keep time? But that would only work in grand finals if there was no game after it. But I think, do you really think that they're going to push the games back that far if they have drop-offs? Could you not just go straight to 3-on-3 with juniors to get a try?
I would like to see the older age groups do a drop-off. Like, they're the excitement. They're on the talking live stream and that sort of stuff now. You look at men's opens and stuff like that. There's nothing better than a drop-off at a grand final last game of the weekend. I think there's a place for it with maybe your 16s, 18s. I still think your young ones, you look at the under 12s. I think there was an under 12s grand final, the semi-final, the one I watched that went for about 7 minutes. I still think they're probably your point system, but I think there's a place for your 16s, 18s.
Would you say grand final? Would you say grand finals only or all finals? Because you're right, it is a spectacle. When you see a drop-off, people go and watch.
You can maybe go semi-final, grand final. I don't think quarters. I think that's too early in the day. Your semi-finals, final, you're nearly looking at lunchtime semis, maybe a 2:30 grand final. I think there's a place for it there. But your younger ages, I think we still need the point system for that fact. It could go on for a very long time.
Yep. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
We had a Western. Mitch, you didn't go to it. We had the Don Green Western champs in November last year, and 5 of the divisions were decided based on who scored first. So there was 5 teams that actually never got beaten as far as tries go. So technically they're undefeated, but according to the rules, they lost the grand final. And it's just it's a tough pill to swallow when preparation can lead back as far as some mudgy select their teams in May for juniors. Oh, it's great.
Wow.
Probably because it coincides with Vorden, but they do theirs so early. Their preparation is long. So
right.
Yeah, I just do think losing a final like that is the amount of preparation you've done. I think there's got to be a better way. It's one thing I do disagree with.
For 16s and 18s, semi-finals and onwards, I could cop. We go drop-offs, and I don't know. If you needed to put in a provision, I don't know.
Cap
in the unlikely event
minutes.
The game's still going at 10 minutes.
Yeah.
At 10 minutes, we're going to blow the hooter, and whoever scored first, they're going through.
Yep. So you just put a circle around who scored first at the very sort of worst case scenario. Yep.
Yeah.
With the current drop-off now, the way it is, most teams, the team that taps off in the drop-off, they get 2 sets. The other team nearly only
Yes, that's right.
So
that's exactly right.
Almost a disadvantage anyway, the drop-off.
Yeah. I'm going to do another podcast about rules that we'd like to tweak. So if you want to come back on that one, that's definitely going to be a talking point there. That can the drop-off be improved? So teaser here, and then we'll come back to that, because that's probably going to take some time.
Tom, I think I've shared this with your thousands of viewers before. As a player and a coach, local comp, state of origins, state cups, junior state cups, never won a drop off.
I won my. You have
it's
never.
The worst.
Wow.
It's the worst. It's the worst curse and like my mates love it, right? I lost at State Cup 2 years ago. I lost 2 drop-offs in a day.
Wow.
On Sunday, a team I was coaching and a team I was playing in. My mates think we've lost
When
Stoney.
when a drop off comes, mate, just step away.
No, he's just
100%. Everyone says, Mitch, get out of here. You got nothing. You got no idea.
Wow. A big monkey a monkey on your back. Looks like a hornet.
It's a gorilla. It's a 29-year curse, Tom.
Wow. Well, I won my first drop off last year, and trust me, when you win your first drop off, it feels good.
Mm.
Right. So I've got a couple more things to talk about. So talking about now, this could probably come back to another reason why teams would want to do development teams is the under 16s and 18 boys, in particular the 18 boys. In recent years, the amount of rugby league representative competitions and that are now eating into March, February, and now January, they're basically saying to the kids, if you want to play in our rugby league teams, it could be the Knights, Roosters, Penrith, Bulldogs, but then you've got now your Western tournaments as well, the
Rams.
Johns,
yeah,
the Rams, the Great Tigers or whatever they're called, Great Northern Tigers. They're in their own tournaments as well that run through the summer. So they're picking their teams, they're picking massive squads, and they're saying you need to commit here. You're not allowed to play anything else, and that's really it's really impacting the numbers and the quality of the 16s and the 18s. Boys, the girls probably have a similar.
Don't forget the girls.
They probably have
do not forget the girls. It's going to be worse.
They've always had a similar thing with netball, but now we're seeing the Tasha Gale.
It's going to be with Lisa Fiola and Tasha Gale.
Tasha Gale.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So the girls is probably not as bad at the moment, but it's definitely going to come. So 16s and 18 girls are going to be impacted. Do you think? Now, I'm involved with rugby league throughout the whole year, and then I see these tournaments in January. I actually get really concerned that someone is just going to pass out on the field very soon, especially with these young kids and the amount of work that they're doing and they don't really have a heat policy in league. They'll play in 38 degrees. Like I went out to Denman last January to watch some. To do some assessments on games and things like that. And I could barely even sit in the shade. It was that hot. So there's that side of it. And then you look at, is it too much rugby league? It's a winter sport. Does it need to be eating into so many months of the year? And the other thing is, does 15-year-old kids really need to be on contracts? Is that too young to sign a contract?
To be honest, they're starting at 14 now, mate. Like it's down, it's down to 14. I know. This way, in December, they were starting their rep period in December. And it's as young as 14 are pulling out of touch to go and play league through the summer period. And it's like, I still look at it and I say to so many people, who are the best rugby league players at the moment? They're all ex-touch.
100%. Yeah.
Like you can learn your skills. We create space. We teach players how to create space. Like touch is a good platform, but it comes back to the coaches that are telling them these things as well. And if we've got a partnership in it, everyone's got to be on the same page. But at the moment, we're not on the same page. I'll give you a stat that I heard today. Last two Southern Conference last year's, 2 Southern Conference champions may not field 18s this year. Teams. They won the Southern Conference last year. Both 18s, boys and girls, may not field teams this year in 18s.
That's wild.
And one of them teams won the 16s as well.
Penrith.
So that's And Wagga are struggling with the boys.
Wow.
Yeah. So that tells you that the girls are getting smashed because 18s and 16s both won last year. This year they may not field an 18s girls out of both them teams.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
It's hurting big time. But the scary thing is it's down to 14s now. I know there's 14s kids here that have pulled out because
we have in Newcastle. They do development. They have development systems with under 14s. I don't think they actually play anything. Yeah, but
all the clubs do.
They'll do 14. In a couple of years, it'll be 13. In a couple of years, it'll be 12. It'll just keep going backwards.
Yeah.
And
look, it's a kid's dream to play NRL. We all get
100%.
And if a kid makes it and wants to go for it, I'll encourage it. But I always say I'm a realist that, what's the percentage that make NRL? Like, let's be realistic there. There's a lot that come from grassroots that they just get chewed up and spit out. Like, let kids be kids. And let them experience sport. Until they're sort of that 17, 18, 19 age bracket, they're still trying different sports and that sort of stuff. So let kids be kids. Let them play what they want to play. Don't force them. There's no professional 14-year-old. And that's what we've got to be realistic about. There's no kid that's a professional 14-year-old at rugby league because next year you might want to go and play netball. Who knows?
That's right. And don't get me wrong. Like I think it's crap out there taking all the players, but I'm not saying that if you have a round of rugby league, you should not play your rep rugby league to keep playing touch. But we have our regional tournament coming up, not this weekend, but the next, where Andrew Johns and Laurie Daly don't actually have any football on. Their competition starts the following week, and these kids still aren't allowed to play in this regional tournament when there's no football. So I can understand them not being able to play because there is a round, and there's minimal rounds, like 6 rounds, so you don't want to miss one because it could really impact your finals chances. I get that. But yeah, to tell a 15-year-old kid that they can't play in a touch football tournament and there's nothing else on, I think that's a bit of a low blow. I'm sorry.
All right. So I have experienced, and I've seen it for 6 years at the club, right? And if a player is contracted, like let's say he or she is a 16-year-old kid and he's contracted and is getting some sort of payment, no problems. The club can tell that kid, even if they're getting a couple of grand or paying for school fees or whatever, right? If there is a contract and there's some sort of financial
that's like an employment. That's
no problems. You tell those.
Are they allowed to be paid under 18? I don't know. Are they allowed to be paid under 18? They are.
Yep. So if they're getting paid, no worries at all. They can say you can do this, you can do that because we're paying you. It's the kids that aren't paid. And the advice, I don't want to, annoy people, but it's typically the parents that listen to the clubs. The kids will want to play everything, right? It's the parents that will say, listen, Johnny, you're going to have to give it a break and you're not going to play. The best thing I would say, if you listen to Uncle Mitchy, kids, just go and play touch, but don't tell them. Make sure you're making your training and you're making all your footy commitments and you're not missing anything and you're not late. And in your own time, if you want to go and play touch, they can't stop you. And the better, this sounds awful, but the better rugby league player you are, the more bandwidth you're going to get. If you're struggling and you're in the, you might not make the 17, you're, going to be 18th man, 19th man, they're going to put pressure on you. If you're the gun halfback or the fullback or whatever, they'll be like, oh, yeah, mate, it's all right. But just don't tell them. Just do what you want to do in your own time if you're not paid. That'd be my guidance, Thomas.
Look
it does take a lot. Go, Dave.
Look at the current players. You've got Ponga and Pappenhausen that both played Aussies, 18s. You've got Bailey Hayward, who's a kid that I know pretty close. He played State of Origin 20s. And then he was still in systems, but he still played touch all the way through. And now he's a regular first grader with the Dogs. So, there's still a pathway there.
Oh, there's so many of them, mate. There's heaps, right? Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely.
It's a burning topic. I know everybody.
It is. So my I've got a suggestion for 18s only, right? So I'm not going to do 16s, but for my suggestion for the 18s is we have an 18s grand final one weekend where all teams, normally at the moment it's a Penrith Gala Day. So all the 18s teams from Saturday and Sunday go to Penrith. You might get, 20 boys and 20 girls teams maybe? So you could fit enough games in and you work out the structure to be, but you'd be playing a fair few games. But the 18s grand final is done before Christmas when, normally the junior rugby league programs sort of have a bit of a break. The week before Christmas, they come back first week of January, right? So in their holidays, they can't say you can't be doing this or you can't be doing that. And some kids might choose not to play, and that's fine. But I think the 18s should have a combined grand final before Christmas. And then when you go to State Cup for the Northern and Southern Conference, I think it's really important that the 18s kids are still there for the sense of a club. And a lot of them would have started in 10s and gone the whole way through and all that sort of stuff. So at the Northern and Southern, you have 18s mixed. And then you might have you might be able to then field two mixed teams, so, I don't know, Taree, right? So they would have had an 18s boys and an 18s girls. So they can put in a mixed A and a mixed B so that the 18s are still there at the Northern Conference, participating, getting around the younger kids, because the younger kids still look up to the 18-year-olds and support them and that sort of stuff. What do you reckon?
They're still the spectacle of the Junior State Cup too.
Yeah, no, they are, 100%. So what do you reckon?
I wouldn't be against it. I'd like to see it mixed at State Cup no matter what for the smaller affiliates.
So in Queensland, they have 20s mixed. I've always just assumed, I've never asked anyone, but I've always assumed that having a junior mix might come down to the fact that they're underage and where you're touching girls and things like that. I think there might be a bit of an area that they don't want to sort of put their feet into as far as that sort of stuff. That's just what I assume. Maybe, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yes, which is a good point. And I know Queensland do have a 20s mixed.
Well, we have Aussie 18s mixed, right? So,
level by level.
And with Stoney's point, right, and you sort of see it at Senior State Cup. You get a smaller country town, they might not be able to get 14 players, but they might be able to get 8 guys and 6 girls, and then they'll get an 18s mixed team.
Well, yeah, you look at
and then you get the best of both worlds. You get participation, you still get a winner.
We got beaten mixed one year by Yamba, and they didn't have a men's, they didn't have a women because they only had really like 6, 7 really good boys and about that with girls. So they put a mixed team in and they were very good. They were really good, but they wouldn't have been that good if they had to play men's and women's. So as far as helping out, it does level out the playing field. And this goes back to what we were talking about with if touch was ever going to be in the Olympics, should be mixed to level the playing field out a little bit. So it would have to be a trial. I'd say to get that off the ground, Mitch, you'd probably have to say 1 year to do both. You do have an 18s before Christmas, but still offer the 18s the way it normally is at Northern Southern Conference. And if they take a liking to the before Christmas one, and then you see the numbers like really suffer that 1 year, it might be a bit of a punch to the gut 1 year for Northern and Southern. But from there, I think it has the potential to keep the kids involved.
I think the state schools do a mixed challenge as well, don't they? They do 9, 10, 11, 12 mixed.
Yeah, it started. I know New Zealand are massive with their mixed in their school systems and that. And at the national event, I think they've got a junior mixed. So yeah, New Zealand are pretty big with it.
Do you know why I think they might not do it, Mitch? And it goes back to what we talked about first is volunteers. It's another tournament where you need volunteers, refs, all that, and it's just coming off State Cup. And they're probably thinking Christmas break, that's probably your only speed bump.
Yeah, maybe.
Nothing to do with the eye. Like it doesn't affect the greatness of the idea, but it's just There's always
Just look at this year's calendar. This year's calendar is massive.
Chockers. It's horrendous.
For a top level or sort of a second level down, say 20-year-old, from state cup to basically state of origin, there is nearly 7 months of touch football, and it will be non-stop for them. I'm probably talking your top end at the moment, talking your Aussies, your Aussie squad members, your New South Wales squad members and that. But it's going to be interesting to see how kids pull through to get to origin with burnout. Like we talk about burnout with rugby, other sports combined. This year scares me a little bit with the 20s age group with burnout because they had the December State Cup. They could have Junior State Cup. They could have a Junior State Cup final. They could have Junior Regionals. They've got Aussie camp trials. I'll have Aussie camps. I'll have NTLs. It's a little bit scary.
A lot of running, isn't it?
To see if kids pull through it because it's a jam-packed calendar. It's just one of those things that it might be battle of the fittest by the end of the series for the 12 divisions.
Yeah.
The last thing
you'll have them right, mate.
Yeah. The last thing I've got about the conferences, do you think that they are even enough to continue the way or do you think that there needs to be a few changes? I know it's hard, like you got to think of probably the ones that are near the border.
Well, how they switched it, and we talked about it at the start, how it sort of roughly got split from the Sydney Harbour north-south, but then Hills actually went south, who are north. So there is, I don't know whether it's happened, but they were supposed to come back to the Northern Conference. So if you bring a pretty big club in Hills back north, it's really got to start swinging some big powerhouse affiliates to the Northern Conference because your Renegades are massive now.
Gigantic.
They won the affiliate championship last year. You got your Manly, you got your Coast, Newcastle, Maitland. If you bring them guys north as well, it's got to really start to swing to the Northern Conference a fair bit. Because 2 years ago, I think Hills won the championship. Last year, I think West won it. And then you've got Penrith. But other than that, what other really big clubs are down south? You got your Waggers.
The Sharks are really on the up and up.
Sharks are definitely improving. Waggers strong. Yeah. It's a strong country affiliate, but if you're looking at sort of powerhouse, what I'd call powerhouse affiliates, to lean north a fair bit if Hills do come over.
Yeah.
Where is Hills? Like
Castle Hill, Tom. Come on, mate.
Is it actually?
Far out.
Yeah, well, no, but is it actually? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Look, it
Sydney.
is a Furphy, right?
I actively avoid Sydney. I don't look into Sydney. I try to never go to Sydney. So unless it's called the actual city name, I don't really know where it is. So when you say Hills, like I've heard of Balcombe Hills.
Yeah.
But it's like I don't know which hills it is.
We can do a geography lesson offline, mate.
And luckily, I thought of the greatest time to ask that stupid question was right here. The old Hills Hornets.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the swing. Like, you just look at the state final. I think it was 7-3 last year to North.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. So that's sort of
maybe we need to give them Manly. They can just have an extra small affiliate, just Manly.
They could take 4 sides and then they make the semis sometimes. They're going to do the state cup themselves.
Oh, they've got. I think someone told me the amount of teams that they have in their junior system, and I
heard there was 470 one year. They had
multiple
a waiting-
nights.
Yeah, they had a waiting list. That's
Wow.
crazy.
Madness.
How's Port's juniors going? Are they getting good numbers?
Steady at
Steady?
the moment. It's sort of really plateaued out at the moment. So there's some other affiliates that are growing. Coffs is growing a fair bit.
Oh, that's good.
Balliner's reasonably strong with the numbers, yeah.
They had a really good vibe last year, Ballina. They had the tent was sort of set up at field 2, and they had always just everyone was just sort of always there cheering on. There was a lot of noise coming out of there.
Talking about 16s, 18s, last year there was not one 18s team in the men's that went out. But this year, there was one 18s girls, which Tari fielded.
Mm-hmm.
But this year, I think Ballina, they're combining their 16s and 18s boys to send them out to play 18s.
Okay. There's a couple of good 16s boys out there.
Yeah, and then Tari, I heard whispers there may be a couple of players trying to go through the pool from Port to play with Tari to field a team with Tari.
I think situations like that, where if Port don't get a team, they should just be, instead of going through the pool and getting a random team, I would like to see them just allocated the closest available club.
Yeah, I think it's a common sense approach. Yeah. To field a team, to get another team at State Cup, because that 18s division, last year there was one pool. I've never heard of 18s having one pool.
No, I've never seen less. There was 9 teams, I think, last year. We played everyone once and we went straight semis.
Yeah, I think to get numbers back, it's a common sense approach. If you can get 2 close affiliates to make a team, let's say it might be Gunnedah, Tamworth.
Yeah, buddy them up.
Just let them do it. Let them do it. Numbers back.
Rugby league teams do that. Rugby league teams do that. 2 towns, they'll combine, and there's never any problems with that. They just split the name, so it might be called. I don't know what you'd call it there, but you might say, you might say Ballina what's up there? Is it Lismore's up there?
Yeah, Lismore Ballina. Yep.
Yeah, Lismore. You might just call it Lismore Ballina. That just might be the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they could still go under one affiliate. I don't think it would matter. But I just think it's
to get. It is. Again, we want more participation. We want to continue to grow the sport. We want more people playing it. So, yeah.
I know there's a couple of sister clubs that work together. They go under one banner, but they're close affiliates, and they put it through New South Wales Touch to be sister clubs for all events. So if a player's playing in, let's take Gunnedah, Tamworth, for instance. Let's say Tamworth was the main club, Gunnedah was a sister club. If a player's playing in Gunnedah, they could go and play for Tamworth at State Cup, even though they're not participating there. So there's only a couple of them, but it's a common sense approach.
You can look at it like a tier system. I know we've got tier systems. Like if you're a tier 3 or something like that, you can go to your nearest tier 2 or tier 1. Or if you're a tier 2, I'm talking if you're trying to play in a team that doesn't have a team. There's a young fella that's in the player pool I know from Dubbo and the 18 boys. And he's got to go through the player pool and he might not get anyone, whereas he could just be allocated a team straight from the start that's closest to him that's available. And that could be Mudgee. So that's not actually that far to drive.
Just got to be careful we don't go affiliate hopping where it's 1 year it's here, 1 year it's there. Next year,
right.
And that's why it's always got to be providing that there is no team for you here.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of and that's on the club. The club just can't say, "Oh, we've got a team, but he missed out, so he can go to a nearest affiliate or something like that." That's what you can't do.
Yeah. And I think working at New South Wales Touch, they do take that sort of common sense approach most of the time. With
of course, they're great. But, you got to query.
You have that conversation with them and go, look, Tari's looking for a team. They're just down the road. We can go to training there. It just works. And how their pool system works, it's normally the closest affiliate within your region first.
Yeah, that's right.
Then an Eagles player, if there's none in Eagles, well, then an Eagles player would go to a Hornets region. And whoever needs somebody from Hornets. So it'd be very rare that I would jump from Eagles to Suns because their system their pool system doesn't work like that. So
Yeah. Stoney, we've got to
Righto.
get you on later before the with a bit of a, state of origin preview after you've picked your team and maybe you've had a few camps or training and that, and not too many tactics because we don't want the two heads to know, what you're up to. But shout out to Tom's Queensland subscribers. But yeah, just to, drill down on, if we can, how things are going and, what you've got cooking.
Love to, mate. This head just thinks touch all the time, so there's plenty that goes on.
I think there's 3 heads here that think touch all the time.
There's plenty that goes on in it.
Yeah.
Whether people like it or not, that's what happens.
That's it.
Righto. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything that we can think of right now. Like I said, if you're still watching at the moment, let us know in the comments if we've missed anything or we're way off with anything or you hate our opinions. Just let us know because I don't know what we can say to that. But anyway, thanks for joining, guys.
Tom, maybe, we do a spin-off and we go with a bit of geography to try and get you to try and help educate you, mate.
It was funny. So in high school, my geography teacher was the touch football coach.
Oh, no wonder you're shit out at geography.
Shout out to Mr. Flowers.
Good on you, Mr. Flowers.
We might be able to get someone from Queensland on because they seem to poach all the New South Wales on. Like Barraville's in Queensland, and I think
absolutely, mate.
I think in the touch world, I think Yamba's in Queensland now, and Tari might be in Queensland as well. So them players will know who I'm having to.
I did notice Ballina Invitational at Senior State Cup.
Yeah.
That was okay though. That's all ability that I can give that. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for joining. And
thanks, Tom.
Yeah, not a problem. We'll see you next time. And Mitch, I'll probably see you sooner rather than later for another episode. But thanks for joining us again, Dave, and we'll see you at Touch.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Later.